Netflix has already been in existence for a long time, so it's not that they've come to Kenya. What they have done is that they have unlocked the service so that even with Kenyan IP addresses, you can actually be able to have access to the service.
It has reached a point that we have platforms that distribute content globally, meaning that if we did a very good film or a very good documentary, it would have a chance to be seen by 7 billion people instead of 40 million people in Kenya.
What you feel about the entry of Netflix into the country?
Once we get competition from international markets, it's good for us because we also get to uplift our standards of production, quality of concepts and so on.
So it gives us a chance, gives us a platform to scale up our film production. But we can't do that until we build capacity to be able to improve the quality of films from this part of the world. That was the reason why we kept on saying Kenya needs to produce more content. Kenya needs to build capacity around content. That's why we wanted the government to build incubators where we can develop capacity that will develop content that is good enough to be seen globally.
Our role is to ensure that any development that comes that has to do with the content and appropriateness of content, especially for kids, for children and minors, it is directed in a way that it helps them to grow their moral values.
But we must know that for you to be able to access Netflix, you must first be able to have a credit card so that you can pay for the service and then you have access to it. Which means if you have a credit card, then you're over 18. Which means when you now start talking about regulation, that anybody who's getting the service is over 18, and if it's then being seen and used by younger viewers, then an adult somewhere is the one that is facilitating that process.
We've signed several agreements globally that we respect internet the way it is. It has a lot of benefits. Once you exploit it well, it brings jobs from foreign countries for you to do here. So if you begin to say, we don't want this, we would pick this, some countries have tried and failed.
Can you give us examples of such countries?
China has been trying to block. North Korea has been trying to block.
To block what?
To block internet.
Yeah.
China was trying to build their own Google form, but they have never succeeded. They have spent billions. Why would we spend so many billions to fight something you can't block?
But sisi kama regulatory body hatungekuwa na uwezo unless iwe ni decision ya nchi mzima for reasons that have to do with security and so on. The debate is not about using social media. It's about using it appropriately. It's about saying, you know, I give the analogy of a road or a corner in the city of Nairobi. The city is good, but there are some corners you warn your children that you can be mugged there, you can be attacked. There are some bad people.
The reason why their content needs to be looked at and be subjected to local standards is because they rate some of their movies 13, yet these movies cannot even be watched by 18-year-olds. Among the movies that the Kenya Films Classification Board was speaking of is Beast of No Nation, where there's a lot of blood and killing.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But as I said, Netflix is just one of the many platforms that provide content through the internet. If you begin to remove Netflix, next is going to be YouTube, next is going to be Google. Where would you stop? And what rules would you use to stop?
Okay.
That is what we are saying. If we follow the Constitution clearly, there is no provision where someone can decide what I'm supposed to watch, and that is something that you have an option whether to watch or not. This immorality around what we watch partly is being driven by religious beliefs.
Yeah.
If we reduce our freedoms and accept that someone can define what is moral, that's one step. And they start moving to step 2. This is what would breed what you call extremism.
Yeah.
And they would move to a point where they would say no woman should be wearing miniskirts, because we have precedents from what has happened in the film industry.
Yeah.
So we must read our constitution in line with what is being proposed.
Okay.
Otherwise, you would agree with this, and the next would be, what do you wear walking on the road?
YouTube alone has over 100 hours of video uploaded every minute. It's not practical to actually go and classify all the videos that have gone onto that, and that's just one platform. So we've sat and agreed that we need to have a framework that allows us to be able to really educate just not only the parents but also the consumers as to how they can manage some of this content, in terms of how they use maybe the software to manage the challenges that they would have. Obviously the kids may want to watch things that the parents don't want them to watch, but we've agreed with them. We're going to come up and get a proper framework that includes also the broadcasters and all other content providers to ensure that we have the right framework and laws in the market.
There's also a lot of self-regulation from YouTube. There's some content on YouTube that you can't put.
Yeah.
Once you put, it's rated. Yeah? It's like, even if you have to watch it, you have to sign up like you're 18, and they have to verify so that you can watch that video.
Okay.
So that's one way. Another way is if you're uploading content that has nudity and stuff, there are a lot of modalities and rules that you have to follow for you to upload such content.
Okay.
Same thing with us. For us as content producers, what we do, we have what we call self-regulation. Like even us, when we are producing content for Jemulim, say, we know this is fit for our market.
Okay.
Even if sometimes we go to the extremes, it's extremes that is in line with our laws, regulations, our cultures and moral values.
The telecommunication firms and the broadcasters should prepare for, like, how should they position themselves now to still make the revenue they are making, even as stiff competition comes through?
The telecom companies are in a very serious fix right now, because you can make a free call using WhatsApp, Fiber, Facebook and stuff. They must begin re-engineering themselves into a new service area. If you look at the Safaricom, which is a publicly quoted company, much of its revenue is not coming from voice. If you look at the mix of their revenue, they are getting much more revenue from M-Pesa, which is a banking aspect. They are getting more revenue from the infrastructure, the internet, meaning connectivity. They should be making more revenue from other services that they need to put into their portfolio. They must begin to think on how to re-engineer themselves.
The broadcasters themselves are concerned that now, there is competition coming in that is not licensed, because again, Netflix is out of the jurisdiction. They only being able to access them via the internet. So what we are doing is that we're setting up a discussion paper. The discussion paper will involve all the stakeholders, the two regulators, that's the Film Classification Board, the Communications Authority, and all other stakeholders, National Communications Secretariat, so that we can come together and say, is licensing of over-the-top companies like Netflix or products like YouTube and so on, how are we going to manage them? My view is that we can actually even harness to have these content companies base their services here in Kenya and distribute it for the region. And to be able to do that, then we must have very predictable laws, laws that protect their investment, laws that protect the data that they're hosting. Not that one day we wake up and say we are going to ban or delete their data. So we have to be very predictable And that's why we have to do it through a consultative process and include them. And then we'll come up with the right laws.
What we teach in the university is that you must constantly re-engineer yourself. Because the moment you sit back, someone comes and wipes you out. If you look at the storage, long time we used to have radio cassettes. The DVDs and the CDs came and wiped them out. Actually, several companies died. Then this, when they have just started, what comes? Streaming comes. It's going to kill the companies that made. If they don't re-engineer themselves, they will die. Even yourself, you keep on going back to university as like re-engineering yourself to do something else. This is what we call continuous improvement, so that you remain relevant in the industry. So even broadcasters, they must continuously re-engineer themselves. Look at what has happened. The entry of vernacular stations has completely changed the viewership of 9 o'clock news. Because they are used that news is 9 o'clock, they bring both and then they compete themselves. Instead of saying vernacular news is at 8 and English or Swahili news is at 9. You see, even them, they are not even re-engineering the simplest aspect on when to give the news, or to say this one would come at 10 or would come at 8, because they have not fully understood the digital aspect. Meaning, even if you give the news at 8, someone who was late can actually watch the same news at 9, at a later date. So if they can't re-engineer themselves to take advantage of the technologies that are in place, they will find themselves misplaced.
Okay.
Yeah.